All right, good morning, Oliver and Jose. We're going to get an update, our comprehensive plan for 2025. Oliver, I'll go ahead and turn it over right away to you.
Good morning, councillors, and good morning, County Manager. For the record, Oliver, Oyako Community Planning. I am here with you this morning to share with you where we are in the 2025 Comprehensive Plan update. And with me is Jose Alvarez, our Land Use Program Manager, and I believe we have our legal counsel online. Councillors, the purpose of today's work session is to share with you the draft environmental impact statement that will have to be done when we prepare the land use alternatives. And we're also here to share with you, provide you information and share with you the process we've gone through in terms of the scoping for that work. Next slide, please. Councillor, this slide is the overview of the information for today's work session. We'll just quickly go through background and the EIS environmental impact statement, scoping update, the draft environmental impact statement alternatives, and then we'll briefly share with you what our next steps are. Next slide, please. Councillors, you have seen this slide, and it's a high-level timeline of the project that we're working on, and you can see that under initial project initiation that started in early 2023 and early 2024, we have completed all those areas that is checked, and we are now in shaping of the plan, which will begin, or we started early 2024 and will likely complete fall of 2024. The area that are in circle there is where we are. And upon completion of that, we will then move into review and refinement of the plan, which will begin in fall of 2024 and stretching into summer of 2025. The adoption process will take us into summer of 2025 and then late 2025 with the final adoption plan on or before December 31st, 2025, given the extension that was granted to 2025 adopters by the legislature. Next slide, please. Councillors, this slide is the State Environmental Policy Act, known as the SEPA process, and it is codified in chapters 43.21c, RCW, and also Washington Administrative Code 197-11. The SEPA rules requires that potential environmental impact statement of a comprehensive plan be reviewed, and it also requires a preparation of environmental impact statement for projects that are likely to have significant adverse impacts. In the EIS itself, what you see is a description of the proposal and alternatives, the analysis of probably adverse impacts, or known as, or you may also include then known and possible mitigation on how to address those potential or probable adverse impacts. It is a technical document that presents you with options and effects. It's not a decision document. However, it helps inform you prior to you making a decision on the land use itself. The scoping process that we started is what initiates all the SIPA work, and staff and our consultant, which the council approved, the Seaview Environmental, we have completed the initial scoping process. Next slide, please. Councilors, this slide is the overall SIPA process. The environmental threshold determination was issued in, I believe, on May 15, and the scoping period was from May 15 to June 5th. We had those two stars. The significance of that is when the scoping was issued and the date ended, and then the open houses that county and our consultant attended. I'll go into detail more, but the first one was in Richfield, followed by one we had in Vancouver, and another one in Battleground, and one we had online. The orange blocks, councilors here, just reflect what are the key major dates on timeline and the sequence. As you can see from the development of the alternative, as I mentioned earlier, occurring in summer to fall of 2024, to the draft itself, and which will lead us into selection of the preferred alternative or preferred land use, which this council will be making following public process. By that I mean going through the planning commission and before we come to you, and then the final preparation of the final environmental impact statement, and then your final decision leading us into December of 2025. Next slide, please. This slide presents the scoping open house. As I mentioned, the State Environmental Policy Act SIPA scoping notice was published May 15th, 2024. The comment period ended June 5th, 2024. As I mentioned earlier, the first open house was at the Richfield High School, followed by the second one at the Vancouver Community Library, May 29th. And then on May 30th, the third one we had at the Battleground Community Center. We also provided on May 15th through June 5th an online self-paced open house. The goals of the open house were just primarily to explain the comprehensive plan update process, the progress and the schedule, and then to seek public input on issues they feel need to be considered as we develop and evaluate potential impact of updating the comprehensive plan update. Next slide, please. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, councillors, but what this slide represents is that we received 94 comments. And of those 94, 21 was from the open houses. We received more comment via the email and web form, and comments were from stakeholder organizations, members of the general public, and governmental agencies. What followed after that was the summary of the comment we received, and that was developed and prepared by Seaview Environmental, which was the consultant that council approved. Let's go to the next slide. Councillors, here are the theme or topic of the comment provided. It ranges from concentration on zoning, There were comments about UGB or urban growth area expansion, a lot of comment on housing, protection of farmland, addressing transportation issues. There were comment on rail, mining, jobs. You can see the list here. Comment on rural character, social justice and equity. Next slide, please. There were also feedback on the site-specific requests. In other words, those that have made site-specific requests that attended the open house asked about the status of that, and comment about the alternative process, mitigation issues, and other. Councilors, in the package for this work session, we included the summary of the comments. In the document, this is what it looks like. And we also provided a link to all the comments. So anyone can go there and see their comments and read them. And I believe it matches this summary that our consultant provided. Let's go to the next slide, please. Councilors, this slide focuses on land use alternatives. Here we have included three. There are typically three scenarios or analysis or alternatives that are studied in an EIS. When I say typical, it doesn't mean that more cannot be studied, but what often happens is that when you add more, there is additional cost, and it may take long, but typically you see three alternatives studied in an EIS. If we follow what was done the last time or previous, we had what is often referred as a no action. That no action is the existing comprehensive plan. And in looking at that, the question is, can the decisions that the councillors have made in terms of population, jobs, can that fit in within the existing comprehensive plan document? That's why you have to study the no action. The second alternative likely will be alternatives from the cities. We have 7 cities here in Clark County, and we believe that any alternative that they will be preparing will also include consideration of certain site-specific requests. The county, of course, we have land use jurisdiction in the unincorporated Vancouver UGA and the rural Clark County, so we will also be preparing a county-initiated alternative with consideration of certain site-specific requests. The fourth bullet there is only provided just as informational. They need to know. There are recent bills that the legislature passed in 2022 and 2023. It's only here to just make sure that the cities and the counties need to know about these bills. One of the bills is known as ESSB 5593, UGS swap. What this bill provides is that during this process, any city can remove an area within their current UGA and swap it with another area. That's what this bill provides. They have to show why they are doing so. And there have to be some justification for that, but that has to come from the city. The second provision or the second bill passed have already been codified in RCW 3670A-067. It's generally known as effective date of the Growth Management Hearings Board final order. What that means, and the council can read that or review that bill on itself. Again, this is informational they need to know as we are working on our land use alternative and consideration of urban growth boundary, potential urban growth boundary expansion. What this particular section talks about, and you can review that on your own, councilors, but I think is, as I mentioned, it's the need to know and be aware as we are doing our work. This particular bill provides that it says the initial, if I may just quickly glance over it, you can read that on your own, councilors. It says the initial effective date of an action that expands an urban growth area designated under, besides the RCW 3670-110, removes the designation of agricultural, forest, or mineral resource land designated under, besides another section of RCW, creates or expands a limited area of more intensive rural development. The limited area of more intensive rural development, that's how it is characterized in the bill, but that is our rural centers, just to let you know. And then it talks about create or establishes a new fully contained community. We don't have that here in Clark County. It could also be construed that our rural center meets that definition, even though we don't have that. Or creates or expand a master plan resort. Again, we don't have a master plan resort in Clark County. There are other counties that have that, we don't. But it says that 60 days after the date of publication of notice of adoption of the comprehensive plan, development regulation or amendment to the plan goes on. In a nutshell, what it says is that if a petition for review to the Growth Management Hearings Board is timely filed upon issuance of the board final order. What that really means is that if the action of the council, because one of the authorities of our council is the adoption of the selection of population to plan for, the selection of the employment to plan for, and then the hearing process to adopt the plan. In this case, you will be adopting the any proposed UGS. But this section of the bill that passed in 2022 or 23 says that if an appeal is filed, in essence, it's saying that no action will be taken until any final order from the Road Hearings Board. Again, this is just as an informational item. The cities are aware of these new bills that passed in 2022 or 2023. Next slide, please. Councilors, this slide shows the focus of the county land use alternative that we will be preparing. The focus, as I indicated, will be on the unincorporated portion of the Vancouver UGA and the rural area. We will be addressing the housing supply that the county approved, that share of that housing supply by income band that will go to the unincorporated area. We will be also considering or including the comments from the scoping that we receive, and then include consideration of certain site-specific requests. If I may pause here, councilors, Michelle, can you click on that SSR so that the council can, I don't know if it will open. Yeah, if you can make it a little bit better, yeah, shrink it. Councilors here, you can just shrink it where we can see all the dotted red lines. That's good, that's good. Councilors, this slide is on our website. Anyone can view them. These are all the site-specific requests that we receive. I will turn this over to Jose to give you, because I asked staff, not showing this doesn't tell you much. Let's just look at the stats. So, Jose.
Thank you, Oliver. Jose Alvarez with Community Planning. So this is the site-specific request that we've received. There were 138 total requests that were 318 parcels, and the dots on the map represent those parcels, and that was over 5,700 acres. The vast majority of those, in terms of acreage, are in resource designation. 1,900, almost 2,000 acres of ag, and another 2,200 acres of forest land. Most of the forest land was proposal to apply surface mining overlay. Most of the ag land, there's about 2,000 acres. 1,500 of that 2,000 is to be included in one of the urban growth areas, about 700 acres outside the Vancouver UGA, 157 outside of Camas, 153 in the center, and about just short of 400 outside of Ridgefield. There are also the darker green dots within the Vancouver UGA, which are requests to do zoning changes within the urban growth area. There are about 40 parcels that, at about 516 acres for those requests. So in terms of, we've shared this information with the jurisdictions, so they have this information. I'm sure the property owners have reached out to them to ask to be included for those that are looking to expand their urban growth areas. So it's going to be incumbent upon the jurisdictions. We've asked for them to submit their land use request proposal to study as part of the EIS by the end of the month. For the county's portion, go into the next slide talking about what it is that we're looking at doing in terms of accommodating the amount of land that we need for housing by those income bands. So we'll get into more detail on that, but that's how some of these requests are going to be filtered through that lens in determining what we need.
Go to the next slide.
Chair, if we could pause for a second, I have a couple of questions. So I'm wondering, related to all of those individual requests in the rural area, I know the cities will be looking at the areas nearest the cities, but there's quite a few requests that's just in the rural area. What would be the process or criteria? Because I imagine you'll come back to us with some recommendation. What might that look like?
It is really, if I may say, it might be premature for me to really say what the criteria will be, but I think, if I may, we'll be focusing on how the request fits in with the direction that the council have already provided us. We know, for example, how many housing units we have to plan for in the unincorporated Vancouver UGA. We know what the current capacity is in the rural area now. So all those will be considered, and the implications of any other changes in the land use, if it's not, if I may say, if it's not consistent with the current direction of the council, the response may be no, just to put it blunt. But all those are going to be reviewed and considered consistent with the decision that the council have made so far, but those that made the request will continue to follow the process and come before you or the planning commission and be part of the process. So that's how we have done it in the past. There are some requests, you know, for example, someone that is, you can see where some of these requests are. There's some requests that are not of Amboy, for example, or not of town of Yakot and want to be in the UGA. That you can say no because they're not very close to the town of Yakot, for example, or not of La Center, as far north as they can be, not close to the city of, or the current urban growth boundary of La Center. You may say no to that. You're just gonna look at that. I've put staff reviewing this and flagging those we have to put in what they're requesting and where they fit in and the reason for why I know or whatever they're not included or whatever. So you will see that as part of the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you. So this is interesting, and I'm curious how this is going to happen, because literally each one of those dots, well, I guess there are some of them that you can just, I mean, you don't really have to spend much time on. They're a clear no, but for the most part, each of these dots could be a work session. So how in the world is this all being evaluated and decisions made on yes or no, and how is that recommendation going to come to us?
We have provided this to you. We are going to go through the development of the land use alternative. We are going to go through the public process before the planning commission and then come before you. So you're going to be also looking at this and seeing if the recommendation makes sense or not, or if there is any good rationale for saying no or including some of these requests. As Jose indicated, you see some of the ones that are inside the current urban growth boundary that are asking for higher density. For example, we are going to consider those and say, will it help us, for example, or help the county, not me, but help the county in meeting those housing by different income band? I don't know, but that work is what we are going to be working on with staff and input. This is going to be public. We will go out again and share with the public what the alternatives look like, and some folks will see whether their comment or their site-specific request is included or not. Similarly, as Jose indicated, we have provided this information to the cities. The county role is to adopt or review the proposal from the cities, and as well as the county initiated alternatives. And if the city, for example, I would say that the county unincorporated area in Vancouver, UGA, we have to coordinate with the city of Vancouver in reviewing the entire UGA for the city of Vancouver. And that effort will, as I said, will be done in cooperation with the city and seeing how whatever alternative comes out, because we may have a combination of city and county, and then be able to say, how does that meet all those income band and number of jobs that the council have already approved, and how some of these site-specific requests fits in or doesn't fit in. You will see all of that prior to making your decision. And if any of these site-specific requests are included in the analysis, you will be able to, what I mean by analysis is the EIS work. You will be able to read and, digest the potential impact, how are you going to mitigate that, and so forth. That's the purpose of doing the environmental impact statement.
Okay, and then how are the notification requirements more relaxed, or are they standard? So are these, are these all of these changes being noticed to the public so that people are aware of the potential for change?
What I can say is that the information is available. People have made the request, as I indicated in part of the comment. They want to know the status of their request, and what we are telling them when they call. I have 2 staff devoted to the site-specific request. When they call, we tell them about the process, that no decision, or we haven't reviewed this. The cities are looking at it, we are looking at it, and we will see where they fit in within the perimeters that the council have set, given the population and the job numbers that the council have directed us to plan for. If any of this doesn't fit into that, you will be the one making the call, not staff.
Yeah, I apologize. I think I wasn't clear on that. My question was, are these particular sites being noticed? Like, is there signs being put up like our normal standard is when somebody applies for zoning change?
Not through the comprehensive planning process. That notice is done when we open up the comprehensive plan, when we have the annual plan amendment process. That's when that process kicks in by posting the sign. The council have made a change to our code within the urban road boundary, 500 feet, and in the rural area, 1,000. That's when we do that type of notice. But for the plan update process, what we are doing now is going out either through open houses or through other format to engage the public so that they know exactly where we are in the process.
Okay, so are you going to provide us a recommendation, and then when we move forward with that recommendation, then the changes that we have agreed to, those go through the notification process? And when is that in terms of timing? It just seems a bit counterintuitive. It seems like we're not going to be getting any real feedback from people that would be impacted prior to kind of the decision being fully baked. But correct me if I'm wrong.
And if Oliver will correct me if I'm wrong, because we have had or community members reaching out about one potential, somebody that put in, I think it was Aho, to be honest. And the response to them was, nothing has happened. It's been applied for a site-specific request. There is a process, and the council will not even consider this decision until the end of 2025. Because and all of the recommendations, if it's like Oliver said, if it's by the city then will review that and provide the recommendations through our staff to the council. And if it's close, then we partner. But we're months and months away from even getting to the point of and there will be a public hearing at that point in which also the constituents can come forward and provide public testimony. But all of the decision points that you have been making along this process is the criteria that staff is reviewing to see if it meets that criteria. And then when that comes before council, you'll be told, this was the direction you gave, this is why it fits, or this is why it doesn't fit, and why it won't move forward, or it will move forward with the process, including a public hearing.
Okay, but it's still, I don't see any perfect way through this process. I don't know what the right answer is, but it does seem counterintuitive to me that we are pretty much making those decisions and then putting them out to the public, as opposed to trying to get impact or get information from the public about which ones we would recommend and put into a package and bring forward to a hearing.
And they will have an opportunity to share their opinion before council's final decision.
Right, but that's basically at the public hearing after. There's going to be very little chance for change at that point.
Not necessarily, and the communities also had the opportunity to provide public comment during this process in which council's direction is based on decisions.
Thank you, Kathleen. And councilors, you know, this is a public process. When I mentioned that we have provided this information to our city partners, the purpose of that is we, county staff, do not tell the cities what area they should grow or what direction. They make that decision within their own process and their city council. So if, for example, Commerce decide, or let me just use an example, Washugo decide that they don't want to expand the urban growth boundary and there is a request to put a property or to expand, I'm sorry, I don't know why this is really, maybe I'm too close to it. If through their own process, the city council of Washugo didn't want to expand the urban growth boundary or want to grow in a different direction, that is their decision, and that will come to you for you to consider and either agree or not. So that is how it is going to work. Similarly, for any of the other cities, I don't know, take town of Yakult. I don't know if they want to expand their urban growth boundary. I don't know that. So when a request to expand Commerce UGA, for example, I wouldn't be the one making the decision for them. They have to look at this information, and as they're going through their own process, make a decision one way or the other in what direction they want to grow. They may not entertain any of this, or they may entertain some of them. I don't know. That's what I mean by public process. The cities are doing the same thing that we are doing, and all this information will come before you. You will see an analysis of this site-specific request, how they fit in or how they don't fit in. You will either agree or disagree with that. Process is going to go through the Planning Commission as well. So let me continue, if I may, but it isn't a process where one individual will come and say, I want to have a hearing on my one request. No, you got to look at it cumulatively. How does it fit into the direction that the council have already given us? If I may continue, or let's, Councilor Medviga.
Yeah, afraid not. I'm going to make some comment too.
Okay.
And I'm going to kind of segue off what you just last said, because that's the most important point here. Glenn, good luck. The trick here is community planning, where you have a 30,000-foot view, strategic view. And what, you know, what Kathleen just alluded to was one development where we got a huge amount of public outcry organized. And the substance of it was, we don't need no more houses. We don't want houses. We like the green space around us. Now, obviously, that's not true. We need houses. We need jobs. We need access to resources. What we have right now, if you look at all of the zoning throughout the county, and we've had different suggestions on solutions, but if you look at all of the zoning throughout the county, almost all of it, the vast majority of it, is non-conforming. Let that sink in. We had a plan by one set of counselors to an alternate for, let's fix all this, let's free up zoning. Well, that died a quick death when the council members changed. I can't imagine the number. I'm glad you put that map together because I had no idea there were that many individual requests. And to Glenn, your first point and your first reaction, and it's mostly on the boundary sectors of the cities and the Vancouver urban growth boundary. You know, I don't know how we're going to have the capacity to adequately evaluate each and every one. We can't possibly have a work session on each one. You know that. So again, back to that 30,000 view, what are the basic rules? How do we get caught up on concurrency? I mean, other than people taking to the internet and sending us messages about we don't want growth in our neighborhood, the other one is, hey, before we have growth, let's fix the road that we have right now. You know, we're behind in a lot of areas. We're a very urbanized rural area. And then to the overarching challenge that I also think you're getting to, that you've also previously mentioned, we have over 525,000 people here. We have over 300,000, 30,000 registered voters. You know, 100,000 plus children. But then you look back to that slide, the scoping feedback so far. So just focusing on the registered voters, 333,000 registered voters, we had 94 submissions. That's not a significant statistic. So how do we get the public even engaged? But the holy grail of all of this is working with community development and figuring out broad rules for zoning, where the boundary's going to move, where we get allowed jobs, where we get to have access to resources. Of course, we just lost that consultant for the FRDU, which would have given us some potential relief in the county. So these are really broad questions that Oliver's updating us on where we're at, but we have a long way to go and a lot of problems to fix that emanated from no planning from the 80s and previous to that. So good luck. Oliver, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. You made a very good observation, and I don't have any comment. All I was saying is that we have to go through the public process, and eventually the council will be the one making the final decision. As I stated earlier, the cities will consider the site-specific requests, how it fits in what direction they're going to grow, and county will be doing the same thing. If I may go to the next slide. In the county preparing our own county-initiated alternative, the council has made, if I may, what this slide is showing is a continuation of what our land use alternative may look like, in this case, just Clark County, focusing on the unincorporated area of the Vancouver UGA and then the rural area. It requires us to look at the urban medium and urban high density designations in order to complement the changes that this council have already approved through the newly adopted middle housing code update. We're also going to look at, because there have been some comments, to look at the mixed-use split. What I mean by that is, in the current mixed-use, there is a split of how much of that will develop as residential and how much of that will develop for jobs. So we have, and what the density ranges is going to be. We're going to look at that and present that to the council, or as part of the rationale for how the county-initiated land use alternative is developed. There are also comment and in coordination with CTRAN, that the Highway 99 corridor is the next bus rapid transit. What they're telling us and what we know by literature is that those type of investment rises to increase in land value and changes in land use. So we're going to also take a look at that opportunity and investment. Are there areas where changes can be made in the Highway 99 overlay area or Highway 99 in terms of the zoning? Are there any potential additional capacity that could be harnessed, if you will? In the housing HOSAP that Council adopted, there was a housing strategy or policy there that looked at where there may be opportunity, again, particularly on Highway 99 or other transit corridors, where the opportunity to exist to convert some commercial land to some potential housing opportunity. And we may also look at upzone of existing urban law designations. These are some of the examples of what we may be looking at as we begin development of our land use alternative. The next slide is slide 14. You can just skip that because it is very similar to slide 12. So let's go to next steps. Councillors, this just represent the next steps. We are today we're having this informational work session with you just to go over the scoping and the next step in preparing our or working on our land use alternative. The August 1 Planning Commission work session on alternative and the August 15, I think those dates, including the August 28, I think those dates they are tentatives. They may move, and if they move, it could impact the September 17 council hearing on alternatives. So I just want to leave it there. I know that this building, this room, they will be working on improvement to the system, so we may not have this room. I'm already looking at other facilities to see if they're available so that we can meet some of these dates. If it slips, when we come to you for your hearing on considering the recommendation of the PC, may not be September 16. That's what I just want to communicate here. However, I want to emphasize that our completion date for the draft environmental impact statement will still be, we are shooting for February 14 of 2025. Councillors, that's all I have today. I will take questions, comments. As I indicated, Councillor Chair, you are correct. The number of comments we received was relatively small. I don't know what I can contribute that to. We did a press release. We met the SIPA requirement in terms of the scoping, publication of that, and giving folks that timeline to provide comment consistent with the SIPA rules. I don't know what else we could have done differently, but we will continue to reach out. As I indicated before, we do go out to neighborhood organizations that invite us to come out, and other entities. My staff have been to NAC. We have been to 2 or 3 or 4 neighborhood organizations. We may be going out very soon to another neighborhood organization, coordinating that with Mary Lee, who is a neighborhood Association coordinator. We will continue to make ourselves available. We'll see what happens, but at the end of the day, when we get into the hearing, the Planning Commission work session, folks are invited, even though you cannot speak, just as your own work session, but at the hearing, they can testify. We're encouraging people to watch what the cities are doing, because we don't make that decision for them. So if any of these property owners who have made a request, we've encouraged them to follow the city process as well, but also follow our own process. At the end of the day, you will be the one making the final decision on a plan that the county manager presents to you. So I'll stop there and take questions that you may have, Councilor.
All right, well, let's go to last questions, and the one flippant comment I had in mind when you were saying, I don't know what else to do, gift cards. I mean, if you want public to respond, you need to give away gift cards or something to, I'm kidding about that. We don't have money for gift cards. But anyway, Council, last questions about this briefing this morning. Sue?
Yes, I have a couple of things related to the public comments and input on the SEPA. It's just the SEPA at this point, and you've documented everything very well, and I just looked at that list and all the list of everyone and all of the organizations who've given input, and I thought, well, let's look at one of those. And so the one that I looked at was 16 pages. So I think there's a depth to the input that you have received, and just based on the 2016 comp plan update, when we get to the options, and I know there will be community meetings and open houses, that this room will start to fill up when we look at that stuff. But one of the questions as I was looking at this material was, how is CTRAN looped in? So you answered that related to 99, but I think those transportation corridors in the next 20 years, looking beyond 99, will be important. The other thought that I had is often we're looking at the infrastructure needs toward the end of the process. And I was talking to John Peterson, who's the director of the Regional Wastewater District, and I think it would be good to have the PUD and the wastewater folks come in and just talk about how this growth is going to be impacting them and what maybe we could do that makes their lives a little bit easier. I know the lifting of the urban holding has made things harder than I think it could have been for the Regional Wastewater District. Yes, that might be enough from me. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments by
Sure.
councilors? Go ahead, Councilor Young.
Okay, couple comments. One is, I can't reiterate enough, we have got to have more than 2 weeks in between a planning commission work session and a public hearing. Otherwise, they're presented with the exact same information to consider at the public hearing as they were given for the work session. There needs to be time for staff to incorporate the feedback from the planning commission before it goes to hearing. And then the second thing is, I would just say about, your comment about the neighborhoods, our outreach has to be intentional. We can't wait for the neighborhoods to come and ask us to come to their meetings. We need to send the invitation out to them. So our outreach just needs to be focused and intentional. But thank you for the update. I appreciate it. Looking forward to this process, as painful as it often is.
And I can share, I think Oliver was talking about the neighborhood meetings. He will meet with anybody right now just to talk about process. There will certainly be intentional outreach pursuant to our code for those that are around those areas.
Thank you.
Michelle, Karen, last questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We know how hard your job is, and the saying, you can't please all the people all the time, comes readily to mind with the hard work that you're doing. There's so many different views, there's so many different outlooks, and everyone has a different opinion on how this should all come out. So that'll conclude this work session. We'll have council time at 1. I will be joining remotely, but we'll see you back at 1. We're adjourned.
Thank you all, councilors.